The morning sun spread a warm golden glow across the sprawling grounds of Hanyul International Academy, one of the most prestigious high schools in South Korea. Tall cherry blossom trees lined the stone walkways, their pink petals drifting gently through the cool breeze. Luxury cars stopped one after another at the front gate, as students in elegant navy and white uniforms stepped out with backpacks slung over their shoulders. Some laughed together while walking toward the main building. Others sat quietly on benches, reviewing notes before the first class. A few students hurried toward the library with books pressed tightly against their chests, while members of the basketball and track teams crossed the courtyard after their early morning practice. Teachers greeted one another with warm smiles, and the sound of the first school bell echoed across the campus. The academy looked less like an ordinary school, and more like a university, reserved for the children of Korea's wealthiest and most influential families. Among the endless stream of students, one black luxury sedan rolled through the front gate. Almost instantly, conversations became quieter. Heads turned. Some students whispered to one another without taking their eyes off the vehicle. The chairman's family. No, that's him. The mafia boss's son is here. The car door opened. A tall young man stepped out calmly, adjusting the sleeve of his perfectly tailored uniform. His name was Kang Min-jun, the only son of Kang Do-hyun, one of Korea's most feared and powerful men. Rumors about his father filled newspapers and television reports, but no one dared mention them loudly. Min-jun never acted like a prince. He never looked arrogant. He simply walked through the school as though none of the whispers existed. Girls secretly admired him from every corner of the campus. I heard he ranked first in the entire grade again. Look at him. I wish he'd smile at me just once. Some gathered the courage to wave. Others pretended to walk past him just to catch his attention. He acknowledged them with nothing more than a polite nod before continuing toward the academic building. Inside, Min-jun sighed quietly. Another day, another crowd pretending they know me. His closest friend, Ji-hoon, caught up with him carrying 2 cups of coffee. You've already made half the girls lose focus before first period. Min-jun chuckled softly. I didn't even do anything. You exist. That's enough. Both laughed as they entered the hallway crowded with students changing shoes and greeting classmates. At the opposite end of the campus, a city bus stopped outside the academy gates. A young black girl stepped down carefully, adjusting the strap of her worn backpack. Her name was Amara. She paused for a second, looking up at the enormous school building. It still amazed her. Only a few weeks earlier, she had transferred from another school after earning a full academic scholarship. Unlike most students at Hanyul International Academy, she wasn't from a wealthy family. Every opportunity she had came through relentless study, discipline, and determination. Stay focused, she reminded herself. You didn't come here to impress anyone. You came here to build your future. She walked confidently through the gates without paying attention to the expensive cars or the curious stares. Some students noticed her immediately. Isn't she the new transfer student? I heard she scored almost perfect marks on the entrance exams. Really? I've never seen her talking to anyone. Amara ignored every whisper. She found her classroom schedule, thanked the office administrator politely, and headed toward the science building. She didn't realize that fate had already begun writing a story neither she nor Kang Min-jun could predict. The first bell rang. Students rushed through the corridors. Some nearly collided while laughing. Others apologized before disappearing into classrooms. As Amara turned the corner carrying several textbooks, someone accidentally bumped into her shoulder. The books slipped from her hands. Before they could hit the floor, another hand caught 2 of them. She looked up. Standing in front of her was Kang Min-jun. For a brief second, neither of them spoke. The hallway seemed unusually quiet. Min-jun handed the books back with a small smile. I think these belong to you. Amara accepted them politely. Thank you. Nothing more. No excitement, no nervousness, no admiration. She simply nodded once and continued walking toward her classroom. Min-jun remained standing where he was. Ji-hoon stared at him in disbelief. That's it? What do you mean? She didn't even recognize you. Min-jun looked back toward the hallway, where Amara had already disappeared. Maybe she did. No chance. Ji-hoon laughed. Every student here knows who you are. Min-jun didn't answer. For reasons he couldn't explain, he found himself thinking about the girl who had thanked him as though he were just another student. Not because she was rude, because she was completely genuine. Meanwhile, Amara entered her classroom and chose a seat beside the window. Several girls immediately approached her. "Hi, I'm Yuna. I'm Seri. We're having lunch together later if you want to join us." Amara smiled kindly. "Thank you, but I usually study during lunch." "Oh." The girls exchanged surprised glances before returning to their seats. Throughout the morning, every teacher who called on Amara discovered the same thing. She answered every question confidently. Mathematics, physics, literature, history. Her classmates began looking at her with growing respect. Even the teachers were impressed. By lunchtime, news about the brilliant transfer student had spread throughout the academy. In another classroom, Ji-hoon dropped his tray onto the cafeteria table. "Have you heard?" "Heard what?" Min-jun asked. "The new girl. What about her? Apparently she's smarter than everyone in the senior class." Min-jun looked toward the cafeteria entrance without saying a word. At that exact moment, Amara walked in carrying a single notebook instead of joining the crowd around the food counters. She bought only a bottle of water and quietly sat beneath a tree outside, opening her textbook instead of eating. Ji-hoon followed Min-jun's gaze. "Oh, don't tell me you're curious." Min-jun looked away. "I'm not." But somewhere deep inside, he couldn't explain why the image of the quiet girl sitting alone beneath the cherry blossoms stayed in his mind, long after the lunch bell rang. And neither of them knew that the next encounter would change far more than a single school day. The afternoon classes passed more quickly than anyone expected, but Kang Min-jun found it unusually difficult to concentrate. Normally, he absorbed every lecture without effort, yet his thoughts kept drifting back to the quiet transfer student who had thanked him so simply before walking away. There had been no admiration in her eyes, no nervous smile, and certainly no attempt to impress him. It was something he had never experienced. When the final bell rang, students poured into the hallways like a rushing river. Some hurried toward club activities, while others gathered in small groups to plan their evening. The campus buzzed with energy once again. Outside the classroom, Ji-hoon nudged Min-jun with a grin. "So, are we going to basketball practice or are you planning to stare out the window all afternoon?" Min-jun gave him an amused look. "I wasn't staring. You've been distracted since lunch." "I'm thinking." "About the transfer student?" Min-jun didn't answer. Ji-hoon laughed. "I knew it." Meanwhile, Amara walked toward the library with 3 heavy textbooks in her arms. Unlike many students who rushed home after class, she preferred spending another 2 hours studying before catching the evening bus. The academy's library was enormous, stretching across 2 floors with thousands of books arranged on polished wooden shelves. Sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows, creating a peaceful atmosphere. "This place is perfect," Amara thought, as she found a quiet corner near the back. She opened her notebook and immediately focused on solving advanced mathematics problems. Nothing else mattered. Not the wealthy students, not the whispers, not the rumors surrounding Kang Min-jun. Only her future. About 30 minutes later, the library door opened again. Min-jun entered carrying a stack of reference books. He often came there to study after practice, but today, something felt different. His eyes wandered across the room almost instinctively. Then he saw her. She hadn't noticed him. Her attention remained fixed on the pages before her. He hesitated for a moment before choosing a table several seats away. Ji-hoon quietly pulled out a chair beside him. "You're not fooling anyone." "What?" "You chose this section because she's here. I chose it because it's quiet." Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. "Sure." For nearly an hour, neither of them spoke. Only the soft turning of pages and the occasional tapping of pencils broke the silence. At one point, Amara reached for a book placed on the highest shelf. She stretched on her toes but couldn't quite reach it. Before she could try again, another hand gently lifted the book down. She turned. It was Min-jun again. "Here. Thank you." She accepted the book politely. "I appreciate it. You study here every day?" She nodded. "Most days. I've never seen you before. I only transferred recently." Another brief silence followed. Min-jun waited, expecting her to continue the conversation. Instead, she smiled politely. "I should get back to studying." Without another word, she returned to her seat. Ji-hoon, watching from across the room, nearly burst into laughter. "She dismissed you," Min-jun sighed. "I noticed. I've never seen anyone end a conversation with you that quickly." Neither had he. Yet strangely, he wasn't offended. He was intrigued. The next morning, the academy was even livelier than before. Students hurried toward their classrooms carrying projects and presentation boards. The student council decorated the main hall for the upcoming spring festival, one of the school's biggest annual events. Colorful banners hung from the balconies while music club members practiced in the auditorium. Amara paused to admire the decorations. "It's beautiful," she whispered. For the first time since arriving at Hanul Academy, she allowed herself a small smile. Nearby, Min Jun noticed that smile from across the courtyard. He had never seen her look so relaxed. Without thinking, he started walking toward her. Before he reached her, however, 3 girls surrounded him. "Min Jun, will you join our festival committee? We saved you a place," he answered politely. "I'm sorry. I already have plans." The girls looked disappointed. As he finally walked past them, he realized Amara had already disappeared into another building. He smiled to himself. She's always one step ahead. Later that afternoon, Professor Lee announced a major assignment. This semester's research project will be completed in pairs. The classroom instantly erupted with excited chatter. Students immediately began choosing partners. Amara quietly remained in her seat. She barely knew anyone. Professor Lee looked down at his attendance sheet. "I'll assign the remaining students." The room slowly became silent. Professor Lee adjusted his glasses. "Amara," she stood, "your partner will be." Just then, another classroom door opened, and Professor Kim stepped inside to speak privately with Professor Lee. The assignment list was placed face down on the teacher's desk before either of them noticed. Outside the classroom, Min Jun happened to be walking toward the office for an unrelated errand. Neither he nor Amara knew that a single name written beside another on that assignment sheet was about to change both of their lives forever. Professor Lee returned to the front of the classroom after finishing his brief conversation with Professor Kim. The room, once buzzing with whispers and laughter, gradually fell silent as every student waited to hear the remaining partner assignments. He adjusted his glasses and picked up the attendance sheet once more. "Thank you for waiting." Several students exchanged nervous glances. "As I was saying, the remaining students will be assigned randomly." Amara folded her hands neatly on her desk. She had no preference. Whether she worked alone or with someone else, her goal remained the same: to produce the best project in the class. Professor Lee glanced at the paper. "Amara," she stood respectfully, "your project partner is..." He paused. "Kang Min Jun." The classroom fell into complete silence. For nearly 5 seconds, nobody spoke. Then whispers spread like wildfire. "What? They're partners? Seriously? That has to be a mistake." Even Ji-hoon blinked twice before looking at Min Jun. "You've got to be kidding." Min Jun remained calm, though he was just as surprised. Across the room, Amara showed almost no reaction. She simply nodded. "Understood, Professor." Her composed response made the whispers even louder. Professor Lee continued speaking. "The project accounts for 40% of your final grade. You'll have 1 month to complete it. Choose your schedules wisely." The bell rang moments later. Students quickly gathered around their friends, discussing ideas and making plans. Min Jun walked toward Amara before she could leave. "Looks like we'll be working together." She looked at him politely. "It seems so. When are you free?" "I usually study in the library after school." "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow is fine." 4 o'clock? She nodded once. "I'll be there." Without another word, she adjusted her backpack and walked away. Ji-hoon stared after her. "I've never seen someone answer with so few words." Min Jun smiled faintly. "Neither have I." The following afternoon, rain clouds covered the sky. A gentle drizzle began falling just before school ended. Students rushed toward the front entrance, opening umbrellas while others waited beneath the building's large glass canopy. Amara stood quietly near the steps. She searched through her backpack. Her expression changed slightly. She had forgotten her umbrella. "Wonderful," she thought. "I'll just wait until it slows down." A black umbrella suddenly appeared above her head. She turned. Min Jun stood beside her. "You'll get soaked." She looked at the umbrella, then at him. "You don't have to. Our meeting is in the library. I can wait. The rain doesn't look like it's stopping." She hesitated. "I don't want to inconvenience you." He smiled politely. "It isn't an inconvenience." After several seconds, she finally accepted. "Thank you." The two of them walked quietly beneath the same umbrella. Students passing by couldn't believe what they were seeing. "Isn't that Min Jun? Who's the girl?" "They're sharing an umbrella." Phones immediately appeared. Ji-hoon sighed from the entrance. This school won't stop talking about this for weeks. The library remained peaceful despite the weather outside. Rain tapped softly against the windows, while the two students spread their books across a large table. Min-jun opened the project instructions. The topic is social leadership. Amara nodded. We should divide the research evenly. I agree. She pulled out a notebook already filled with organized handwriting. I outlined several possible directions last night. Min-jun looked genuinely impressed. You started before knowing who your partner would be? I don't like wasting time. He couldn't help smiling. I can see that. For the next 2 hours, they discussed ideas. It wasn't an awkward conversation anymore. Although Amara remained quiet, she explained every point clearly and thoughtfully. Min-jun discovered she wasn't cold. She simply spoke when she believed something needed to be said. As evening approached, the rain finally stopped. The librarian announced closing time. Students slowly packed their belongings. Amara closed her notebook. We made good progress. We did. She stood. I'll prepare the next section tonight. You don't have to do everything yourself. I know. I'll handle half. She looked at him for a moment. All right. It was the first time she had truly looked into his eyes instead of speaking quickly and walking away. For reasons neither of them understood, the silence between them no longer felt uncomfortable. The next morning, however, the atmosphere around the academy had changed. As Amara walked through the courtyard, she noticed students staring. Some stopped talking the moment she passed. Others whispered while pretending not to look. A group of girls stood near the fountain. So she's the one. I don't understand what he sees in her. They're only project partners. Are you sure? Amara lowered her eyes and continued walking. Ignore it, she reminded herself. You're here to study. But deep inside, she knew something had shifted. Being paired with Kang Min-jun meant she would never again be just the quiet transfer student. She had unknowingly stepped into the center of attention. And somewhere among those watching eyes, one student tightened her grip on a notebook, her smile fading into quiet jealousy. I won't let this continue, the girl whispered under her breath. Neither Amara nor Min-jun heard her, but the first real obstacle standing between them had just appeared. The whispers followed Amara everywhere the next morning. She heard fragments of conversations as she walked through the courtyard, climbed the marble staircase, and entered the academic building. She's the scholarship student. She's the one working with Kang Min-jun. I don't get why he even talks to her. Some students simply stared. Others pretended not to notice her while secretly watching every step she took. Amara refused to let it distract her. I didn't transfer here to become part of anyone's gossip, she reminded herself. My dream is bigger than this. She entered the classroom a few minutes before the first bell and quietly took her seat by the window. Outside, soft sunlight reflected across the school's beautiful garden. Club members arranged decorations for the upcoming spring festival, while the student council directed volunteers from one corner of the campus to another. Despite the excitement outside, an uncomfortable silence settled over one side of the classroom. Yuna, one of the most admired girls in the senior class, folded her arms as she watched Amara organize her notebooks. Yuna had admired Min-jun for nearly 2 years. She had always believed that if anyone would eventually earn his attention, it would be her. Instead, the new transfer student had somehow become the person everyone was talking about. Her friend leaned closer. You're thinking too much, Yuna sighed. I'm just curious. No, you're jealous. I'm not. Her friend smiled knowingly. Then why haven't you stopped looking at her? Yuna looked away without answering. The morning classes ended quickly. Professor Lee stopped Min-jun and Amara before they left. I've reviewed your project outline. He smiled. I'm impressed. Several students looked toward them. Professor Lee continued. If you maintain this level of work, you'll probably receive the highest grade in the class. More whispers spread across the room. Amara bowed politely. Thank you, Professor. Min-jun nodded. We'll continue improving it. As they walked into the hallway, Ji-hoon caught up with them. So, he looked between the two of them. The famous project partners. Amara looked confused. Famous? Ji-hoon laughed. You have no idea what's happening around this school, do you? I usually study. I can tell. Min-jun shook his head. Ignore him. Ji-hoon smiled. I'm serious. Half the students think something romantic is already happening. Amara stopped walking. What? Ji-hoon nodded dramatically. Rumors travel faster than Wi-Fi around here. She let out a quiet sigh. I've barely spoken to him. I know. But nobody else seems to care. Minjun looked at Ji-hoon. You're not helping. I'm entertaining myself. Even Amara couldn't stop a small smile from appearing. Minjun noticed it immediately. She smiles, he thought. She actually smiles. That afternoon, the academy announced preparations for the annual spring festival. Every class would organize exhibitions, performances, and competitions. The principal stood on the stage inside the grand auditorium. This festival represents teamwork, leadership, and creativity. Applause filled the room. The winning class will receive a scholarship grant for community projects and an academic excellence award. Excitement spread instantly. Students began discussing ideas before the announcement had even finished. Back inside the classroom, class president Seo Ji-eun clapped her hands. Everyone, settle down, she smiled. We need volunteers. Hands shot into the air. I'll decorate. I'll organize the performances. I'll handle publicity. Ji-eun looked toward Amara. Would you like to help with the academic exhibition? Amara nodded. I'd like that. Then she turned toward Minjun. And you? I'll help wherever needed. Perfect. Ji-eun smiled. You'll both work on the exhibition together. The room became unusually quiet. Yuna clenched her notebook beneath the desk. Again. After school, the exhibition committee met inside one of the science laboratories. Models, charts, computers, and presentation boards covered every table. Amara examined a display carefully. This section needs better organization. Minjun walked beside her. I agree. He picked up several folders. We could rearrange these according to the presentation order. She looked surprised. That's exactly what I was thinking. He smiled. Looks like we're starting to think alike. For a moment, Amara laughed softly. I didn't expect that. Neither did he. Across the room, Yuna watched the conversation. She wasn't hearing every word. She didn't need to. Seeing them laugh together was enough. Her expression slowly hardened. Her friend whispered beside her. Please don't do anything you'll regret. Yuna kept her eyes fixed on the pair. I'm not planning anything. But inside her heart, another voice answered. Not yet. As evening approached, students packed their bags and began heading home. Amara walked toward the front gate, expecting to catch her usual bus. When she reached the stop, she checked the schedule. The display flashed a notice. Service delayed. 45 minutes. She quietly sighed. Looks like I'll be waiting. A familiar voice came from behind. Still waiting for the bus? She turned. Minjun stood a few steps away. It seems it's delayed. He looked at the electronic display. 45 minutes. She nodded. Yes, I can ask my driver to drop you off. She smiled politely but shook her head. Thank you. But I'll wait. Are you sure? I don't want to trouble anyone. It wouldn't be trouble. I know. She looked toward the road. But I want to get used to handling things myself. Minjun admired her answer. She never depended on anyone. She never tried to take advantage of his family's wealth. Everything about her was different from the people who constantly surrounded him. For the first time in years, he found himself genuinely looking forward to seeing someone at school. Not because she admired him, but because she treated him like everyone else. Neither of them noticed the black luxury sedan parked across the street. Inside, an older man wearing a dark suit watched them through tinted windows. He wasn't one of the school's parents. He wasn't a teacher. He was one of Kang Do-hyun's most trusted security officers. He picked up his phone. Sir, I believe there's someone your son has started paying attention to. There was a long pause before a deep voice replied from the other end. Find out everything about that girl. The call ended, and without Amara realizing it, her ordinary life had just become connected to one of the most powerful and dangerous families in South Korea. The following morning, Hanoul International Academy looked more beautiful than ever. Fresh flowers decorated the entrance for the upcoming spring festival. Colorful banners stretched across the main courtyard, and the sound of the school orchestra practicing drifted through the open windows. Students hurried from one building to another, carrying costumes, science projects, sports equipment, and musical instruments. Everywhere people looked, the campus was alive with excitement. Yet amid all the laughter and celebration, Amara couldn't shake the strange feeling that someone was watching her. She stepped through the front gate as usual, greeting the security guard with a polite smile, before heading toward her classroom. You're imagining things, she told herself. Focus on your studies. But she wasn't imagining it. From the second-floor balcony, two security officers dressed as maintenance staff quietly observed the courtyard. They weren't watching every student. They were watching her. Inside the Kang family estate, Kang Do-hyun sat at the head of a long dining table, inside a magnificent mansion overlooking Seoul. The polished marble floors reflected the morning sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. Every servant moved silently, careful not to interrupt the calm atmosphere. A middle-aged man in a black suit approached respectfully. Chairman, Kang Do-hyun, looked up from the documents in front of him. What did you learn? The girl is named Amara. She transferred to Hanyul International Academy on a full academic scholarship. And? Excellent grades. No disciplinary record. Quiet. Respected by her teachers. The chairman remained silent. The security chief continued. She comes from a modest family. She avoids unnecessary attention and spends most of her free time studying. Kang Do-hyun leaned back. So my son finally noticed someone who isn't chasing after his name. Yes, Chairman. After several moments, the older man smiled very faintly. Continue watching. Should we interfere? No. His voice remained calm. If she truly is different, time will reveal it. At school, Professor Lee gathered the entire class. I have excellent news. The students immediately became quiet. Your research presentations will be displayed during the Spring Festival. Representatives from several universities will attend. Excited whispers filled the classroom. Universities? Seriously? This is huge. Professor Lee nodded. This is an opportunity many students never receive. Amara quietly wrote the announcement in her notebook. Beside her, Min-jun noticed. You seem happy. She looked at him. I've always dreamed of earning a university scholarship. You'll probably receive several offers. She smiled modestly. I still have a lot to prove. Min-jun admired that answer. Most students at Hanyul Academy were confident because of their family's influence. Amara was confident because she believed in hard work. During lunch, the courtyard became crowded with students, enjoying the beautiful weather. Some sat beneath the cherry blossom trees. Others played volleyball while music echoed from the festival rehearsal stage. Min-jun carried his lunch tray toward his usual table. Before sitting down, he noticed Amara once again eating alone beneath the same tree where she always studied. Ji-hoon noticed his hesitation. You're looking again. I'm just making sure she's okay. Ji-hoon laughed. That's exactly how these stories begin. Min-jun shook his head. We're classmates. Sure. We're project partners. Of course. And friends. Ji-hoon suddenly stopped smiling. You called her your friend. Min-jun blinked. I did? You've never called anyone outside our circle a friend. For several seconds, Min-jun remained silent. Had he really said that? Across the courtyard, Amara looked up from her notebook as a gentle breeze scattered several pages across the grass. Oh no, she hurried after them. Before she could collect the last page, someone picked it up. Min-jun handed it back. I think this belongs to you. She laughed softly. It keeps happening. It does. For the first time, neither of them seemed in a hurry to leave. They stood beneath the cherry blossoms as students walked past without either of them noticing. Do you always study during lunch? Min-jun asked. Usually. You never get bored? She smiled. My mother always told me that every page I finish today opens another door tomorrow. She sounds wise. She is. And your father? Amara's smile faded ever so slightly. He passed away when I was younger. Min-jun's expression softened. I'm sorry. She nodded gently. It's all right. He taught me to keep moving forward. Min-jun looked down for a moment. My parents taught me something different. What was that? Never show weakness. Their eyes met. For the first time, each of them saw that the other carried burdens invisible to everyone else. The silence between them no longer felt awkward. It felt comfortable. That evening, the spring festival finally began. The academy glowed beneath thousands of decorative lights. Families, alumni, and university representatives filled the campus. Music, laughter, and applause echoed from every corner. Amara and Min-jun proudly presented their research project together. When the judges finished reviewing every exhibit, the principal stepped onto the stage. This year's Academic Excellence Award goes to... Every student held their breath. Amara and Kang Min-jun. The audience erupted into applause. Amara looked genuinely surprised. We won. Min-jun smiled. I knew we could. As they accepted the award together, even the students who had doubted Amara applauded her achievement. Yuna watched from the audience. Instead of jealousy, she smiled quietly. I judged her too quickly, she whispered. She really earned this. Later that night, As students began leaving the campus, Amara and Minjun stood beneath the cherry blossom trees where they had first begun to understand one another. "Thank you," Amara said. "For what?" "For treating me like an ordinary student." Minjun smiled warmly. "You never were ordinary," she laughed. "And thank you for reminding me that not everyone judges people by where they come from." The lights from the festival shimmered behind them as cherry blossom petals drifted through the night air. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. They didn't know whether life would lead them down separate paths or together, toward something greater. But they had learned one important lesson. Sometimes the most meaningful friendships begin with a simple act of kindness, quiet respect, and the courage to see the person behind the reputation. And beneath the glowing lights of Hanul International Academy, a new chapter of their lives quietly began. Not as strangers, not as rumors, but as two young people, ready to discover what tomorrow might hold.